internet, we are busy with Sergeant Major S.V. Fourie, or SW, some people call him. He answers to many names. He served in the South African Army Special Forces for 10 years in the parent unit, One Reconnaissance Commando, which later became One Reconnaissance Regiment. And he told me an interesting story about the South African Navy trying to create an aircraft carrier. I think we should start with that one. That's quite the story, because the Navy is very small. They don't have such big vessels.
Yeah, now my Navy terminology is limited, so it's like a rebunker kind of ship, quite a massive one. And what we had in mind is, or what the Army had in mind, is that they put another deck on top. And there was enough space for 2 Puma helicopters, and but what happened is it started tilting. Now it was too top heavy, so they added more weight at the bottom of the vessel. So yeah, they sort of stabilize it, and then, well, the benefit of that is that kind of rebunker, not like a tanker, but it's got a distance of several thousand kilometers that it can travel. And then on top you have your Puma with a distance of about 400 k's with the extra fuel tanks. So that enhances our capability of doing strikes more deeper, and then having the name of that ship was Tafelberg, named after the famous Tafelberg in Cape Town itself. So yeah, here we went and we deployed. They refueled in Walvis Bay again, and then we went north in the southern part of Angola, very close to the sea. I would say about 25 k's, 30 k's. There was a small deserted, like a kraal, a couple of small houses, but there was nobody staying there. Nobody, is like a desert there. So the idea was that we would be deployed with the choppers. They will drop us off on the shore, and then we would walk that 25 k's, do like an urban attack on these small houses, and then we will walk out again. Yeah, so it was, it worked out well, although when we were back on the ship, there was an officer from Parachute Battalion that were just dispatched to us. Not sure why. Well, and I'll tell now why. He said, yeah, but he listened to our firing because it was recorded, and his troops, his junior troops in Parachute Battalion can do better than this. Now, what he doesn't realize is that we don't have vehicles supporting us with ammo. We don't have backup of Puma supporting us with ammo. And if we fire a double shot, and then selectively, not just to make a noise. So he sent us back again. So we took extra ammo, extra magazines, and we did the same thing all over. It was actually, how can I describe it without being sarcastic? What we did is we would stand in a room, put it on automatic, and just empty the rifle to impress this officer from Parachute Battalion. He was quite a high-ranking officer. That was ridiculous, to be honest. He didn't fit in there. He didn't, no idea how we operate. But now we had to walk that 30 k's again and walk it back again, and then the Pumas will take us back to Tafelberg. Yeah, so so how it worked is that they would fasten the Pumas with 4. It wasn't ropes. It was more that thing that if you got heavy equipment on the back of your truck, you winch it. Yeah, straps. So the Puma will pick up speed till the pilot is ready to take off, and then that straps will only be released. Yeah, so that it worked out well, although we did have a officer that was operating out of his depth.
Yeah,
And
I can just imagine that he was, I mean, special forces and paratroopers really have nothing in common. One is conventional and the other one is special.
yeah,
It's not the same.
yeah.
It's not the same. It's really ridiculous to even have him around.
If we
And
are
why
in
are
a
your
firefight,
patients?
yeah, you should deliberate aim shots, 1 or 2, because you know there will be another battle today or tomorrow, and there's no resupply of ammunition again. But he didn't understand that. Okay, so then we went back and we were. I remember the red hot rum was cheap. We paid for a double 25 cents. So I think by day 2 they were out of alcohol. And I remember we were at the lower deck. We were playing darts, and it was nighttime. And normally on top they will have nets that I pick up, and they close the sides so that if somebody walked there at night, they won't fall over. Because I remember this is a new deck. And this one tech guy, and we quickly picked up he was never in the operational area, because the first time he would climb into the chopper and he would step on our equipment. We weren't very impressed with that. The chopper pilot was experienced, but not his tech guy. And yeah, so we were playing darts and he was up there and he took a wee and the ship tilted and he fell right through the net. And we heard him coming down because he was yelling at the top of his lungs. And he hit the water. You know, fortunate for him, we had illuminating sticks. So immediately some of our guys broke it and we threw it over the side. And now that was also, it was pitch dark. And I just imagine this guy in this ice cold water, about 50 kilometers from the shore. And at night, and all we see is this massive Tafelberg disappearing in the dark. So immediately the Navy launched one of their, like a flat bottom ship, weird thing. And with hooks, they swivel it over the side. And as it was just before they lower it, 2 of the hooks came loose. And nearly we've got 2 more guys in the water. They were hanging onto this boat. So we launched 2 of our boats, and we launched the Puma as well, with searchlights, and he started to search. So what our guys did is that we would go from illuminating stick to illuminating stick, and eventually about 30 minutes, 35 minutes later, they found him still floating there, and he told the medic afterwards that he was on his way to let go. He think it was a lost case. Well, and thereafter he would walk circles around us. Sir. Yeah, so that was the interesting incident.
Well, that must be the luckiest man alive. I mean, it's almost unbelievable that he was found. And I will put a picture in here with Tafelberg. It started life, if I remember correctly, as an oil tanker. And so they just adapted it, and it became this sort of aircraft carrier. But you know what? There was no need not to, because the naval opponents weren't that good. The war was fought mostly on land. I don't think there was any naval battle whatsoever. I'm not aware of one. I've heard a story of a submarine actually torpedoing a helicopter. I don't know if you know it, and I don't know if it's true, but I've met some submariners who said they actually sunk a helicopter by a torpedo. And how they did it, according to themselves, and they weren't all that drunk. They might be telling some kind of truth. I don't know. They said they got trapped after working with you people somewhere. And there was a Cuban helicopter or an Angolan one searching for them. And so they could pick up on the sonar exactly where this thing was hovering. And so they launched a torpedo at a very, very slow speed. And of course, the torpedo is wire guided, and it's got one hell of a big warhead. And so they cracked the West torpedo until they sort of figured out they are close to this helicopter or right below him, and they detonated it by signal. And the water spout went up and it knocked that helicopter right out of the sky. If true,
Sure.
I don't know if it's true, but if true, and these people are adamant it's true. It's the only time ever that a submarine could, sink a helicopter flying in the air with a torpedo. So that's an amazing story. Amazing story. I was wondering while we were talking, I can't get to the name of it, but in Durban there were other helicopters as well. I think it's 16th Squadron, which were amphibious. It was these very large things. They could actually land on the water. I just can't remember their names. It was not a Puma, it was something else. I know they had 3 engines. They didn't do well in the bush war because they were too big, they overheated.
The only choppers I know about is the Frelen, and they could only be used there in Durban, where the air is a little bit thicker. But yeah, and then of course we used it to do parachuting jump out of it, free fall.
Out of the Frelens.
Yeah.
That's
They've
interesting.
also got a ramp, like the C-130, they got a ramp at the back and you can.
Okay, and so then you just fall out there. That must be a horrible feeling because, but normally when you jump, the wind takes you. So you don't like feel you're falling straight down.
And like in a vacuum.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like jumping out of an air balloon, but it's probably the same feeling.
Yes, I can believe that must be very nasty until that parachute opened because you really can feel yourself falling, which is not the same when you jump out of a Hercules. And that's very interesting. Thanks for that. If that aircraft guy, if he's listening here, come and talk to us. I think you owe a beer to everybody who found you. Fantastic story. Did the Navy ever allow you in their bar again after you drank it dry in 2 days?
There was nothing else to drink. But their food was excellent. Yeah, they really spoiled.
Yes, in the previous one we were talking when you were going down to Fourie, which is for sea guys, the guys who specialize in water, divers, people like that, and you had this wonderful seafood. The Navy itself, did they have also like seafood, or were they more into meat?
Meat but everything and desserts and entree and the full Monty. It was quality food.
Because this Tafelberg is such a big ship. It's really a big thing in relation, especially to the attack craft. But you had better quarters. You were not as cooped up as you would normally be.
Yeah, there was more space for us to sleep, and it was an interesting trip.
And I forgot to ask you, Israel, while we were away, it just occurred to me. You say that the 76 millimeters, the Otto Brera probably started shooting there on the strike craft, and you felt like the air was being sucked in and out where you people were right below it.
Yes.
Why were they shooting? What were they shooting at?
They sort of just do a rehearsal, same as us, and just to see if everything was firing. And it was an excellent cannon. I think it was like more or less the same cannon that ended up on the Rooikat.
Yes, it's exactly the same, actually.
Yeah.
The Rooikat, I'll put a picture here for you, is an armored vehicle, very fast, very quick. It missed the war by a few months. Well, its first gun was the 76 millimeter. They just changed the way the gun was shooting from the Navy one to the one on the armored vehicle. Fantastic vehicle and fantastic gun. You can even use that thing for anti-aircraft. You can shoot down missiles. It's fast. It's a quick fire sequence, I believe. And of course, the strike craft, and I'm going to put a picture here of them as well because they're becoming important now. They had very good missiles on board. They could launch them surface to surface and take out a ship on the other side quite a distance away. And they came, I believe, from Israel. I But Israel got them as the Shepard class first, and then they started building them as a Reshif, if I say this correctly. And from there on, South Africa actually built a few themselves in Durban. They still exist. These minister class attack craft, as they used to be known, is now called the warrior class, I believe. They changed their names.
Yeah.
They still work with special forces. In fact, they are, if you read our sponsors' books, George M. James will explain to you exactly how these Navy vessels got a second chance in life. And they're still very closely associated with special forces. But anyway, that was interesting. I'm still shaking my head here. I mean, I can't believe how lucky that guy was. He wasn't pulled in by the screws. He wasn't eaten by a shark. He drifted for somehow. I'll tell you, people found him.
Yeah, it would be interesting for ever to see that guy, to hear from him.
Yes, we would love to hear from him. If you know about this guy or you heard such a story and you thought he was lying, well, apologize and just tell him to come and talk to us. He was that lucky. He was that lucky. I think if you didn't launch your boats and the helicopter didn't take off, probably would not have made it. Last question. In this Puma helicopter, I do know, I've seen it in Nigeria. They have like a rubber duck type of inflation device around them when they fly on the oceans. So if they do have an engine problem, they can actually land on the ocean and this thing will inflate and they will start drifting. But that is really, really not what they want to do, which I was asked why I was asking about the super free laws. When they picked him up, was it a helicopter which picked him up, Esme, or was it you people?
No, it was one of our ski boats, if I remember correctly, yeah.
Okay, now I have to ask you something also. I don't know if this is a Fourie speciality, but have you also practiced with this that rubber duck would come at one hell of a speed and then they sort of hook you up? They have like a hook and they grab you by the arm, you hold the arm up, and they just throw you into the boat. They don't stop and pull you up.
Yeah, we had that rehearsal in Durban. Part of our exercising was just below the bluff. So we did that quite often.
Tell me about it. I'm quite keen to hear. How does it feel? You're lying there in the water or you're treading water or what do you do?
Yeah. And then you would put out your arm like that and the guy would bend over the pontoon and then hook you. And then the coxswain must then turn
into you.
Away from you. Yeah, away from you. But now we also had an accident there, luckily close to Addington Hospital. We did that drills and the coxswain missed the first guy and there was another guy lying in front. So he was heading directly for him. And this guy, he didn't see the guy. Stein, I think was the guy's name. So the only thing he knew, he's not going to get away. So he jackknife, took his head out of the way and the prop ran over his bum and sort of hit him on the back. So yeah, we grabbed and put him, of course, there's sharks there, so we put him in the Zodiac and we speed off. We had a beach landing and we carried him to the hospital. And they stabilized him, but he was fine after that.
And that coxswain had to buy a beer, I suppose.
Yeah, I was in trouble.
Well, the thing is we laugh about it, but if you don't practice for real, you are going to die. It really is important to make it as hard and realistic as possible. And I think you people especially were famous for that. Actually, the entire South African Army. I spoke the other day, a few years ago, actually about 2-3 years ago, with a female. I'm not going to mention names, not my wife. And she told me her son was in the US Army. I don't know exactly where. Well, I do know, but I'm not going to tell you. And she told me that he told her, whether this is true, his stories he told, whatever. But that they have like something like a code. And if they feel too tired or they feel that the instructor is a bit mean, then they can actually use this code and they can, get like a free card. And then they don't have to continue with the exercise until they feel it's more safe. What would your impression be of such a thing if this is true, which I don't know?
Well, if it happens in the pre-selection or selection, that guy is out. He will never make it. The chances of that happening in the actual war is about zero, because the guys get selected very strict, and there's no way you can hang around there, but you're going to be left behind. You're very deep into enemy territory, behind enemy lines. So where are you going to go? You have to stick with your team. Yeah, so each guy had a role. Each guy was qualified for something specifically in a team.
Okay. Well, I hope what I've heard is not true, because if it's true, it's low standards. We're not impressed. You better sort out your crap or you're going to lose again the next war, and this time it might be against China or Russia. But anyway, this bridge behind me, we've been looking at that picture for a long, long time in this series. Can we talk about that bridge?
Yeah, it's the Girual Bridge, and I nicknamed it Nearly Bridge Too Far, like that movie in the Second World War.
Yeah, on him. 1944. Bridge Too Far. That was the paratroopers, by the way. I don't know if you know it, SB, but you were involved with that strike, the Green Leader strike, of course, the one in which was
Zambia.
Zambia, that's right. One of the Dakotas which were flying there actually flew at Arnhem at the Bridge Too Far. And then it came down, and it was part of the Rhodesian Air Force. And I also hear that one of the dispatchers was actually now an older guy, of course, but he jumped at Arnhem as well when he was still part of the British paratroopers.
Yeah. Okay, the Girual Bridge. What happened is that there was a build-up in Quito again, and it was the same way we blew and stopped the trains, supply trains. Blowing up this bridge was the supply route for the Cubans and Russians. The Girual Bridge, and I can't remember which is the closest harbor from there, but it wasn't very far. So everything built up to slowing down their build-up, the Cubans and the Russians and the MPLA, to demolish UNITA and then put us in a difficult position. So because UNITA were pro-Western and pro-South African army, pro-South Africa. So it was the railway lines, and the trains we blew, the bridges that we blew. 4 recce sank a couple of the ships that came from Cuba. They sank in the harbor. But maybe get one of that guys to tell us what they did and how it happened.
Yes, anyway, I've heard of that, right? It was quite scary. Because when they came back and they had to meet with their rubber dogs, they weren't there. And then they found them. They were anchored at an abandoned ship or a shipwreck or something, and these guys then moved into the other side. A very, very interesting story. Now, I would love to hear that. Yeah.
So that was all part to neutralize the build-up of the MPLA soldiers to Quito. So we were deployed with 2 strike craft, and our teams would be mostly 1 reconnaissance, with 4 guys doing the actual deployment with 4 Barracudas ski boats. That's the boats with the 150s, twin 150s. Okay, the same scenario. Well, like I mentioned before, the purpose of this was the same with blowing up the trains, and the same with 4 recce blowing up the Cuban resupply ships. It was to stop the MPLA, their movement to the eastern part of Angola, to wipe out UNITA. So we slow down this whole process, and it simultaneously caused a lot of damage as well. This bridge was used by the Cubans and Russians, trucks running there. It was actually, our target was 2 bridges. It was this one, And further deeper into the western side was another one, more like a low-level bridge. I think in total, we carried for this bridge, we carried about 600 kilograms of PE4 explosive in bags. It was in bags of 5 kilograms each. And we had our super glue designed by Dr. Van Joint, where it's two liquids that you shake, throw them onto a plank that's got the hook on, and then you push it against a pillar, and a minute or two you can hang on to that. It's not going to break off. So it was excellent because there was no other way of putting your charges on that thick pillars. It's reinforced as well. Okay, so we deployed, I think it was more than 20 guys. We deployed from the actual seashore with the 4 Barracudas. But I remember this was even more scary, climbing over the side of the strike raft, because the sea was heavy, and you would look down and you would see the ski boat right down there, and then all of a sudden it will come up again. And then you have to wait, if it's not too far away, to jump. And then you have to time it when it's coming up, not when it's going down. So when it comes up, you jump. Of course, the explosives was already in the ski boats. It was packed between the two rows where we're supposed to sit. And off we go. So, of course, now I remember one of the ski boats, it was 18 foot. The others, I think, was 21 foot. Was so heavy laden that it started taking water. So it had to keep on circling just to get prevent it from getting too much water in. Okay, then we left. I can't remember. I remember it felt like a lifetime going through that waves, bumping, sitting on this, what do you call it? That is that it's like a planks and then reinforced at the bottom with iron bars. So that's where we were sitting on. And there was a strap that you can hold onto.
And this is again in the middle of the night.
Middle of the night, yeah. Everything is in the night. And then, of course, there was a...
You also had black members with you from 5 Recce.
5 Recce, yes. And the reconnaissance was done, I think, about two weeks beforehand. And they said there were guards close to the bridge. And they worked out the route for us. We need to climb up. Now, remember, my rucksack, I weighed 72, 75 kilograms, and my rucksack with everything inside. I also had all the mechanisms and a lot of the no-nail. The no-nail is to connect all these charges, works like Cortex. I carried that as well. So it was probably close to 80 kilograms. It was extremely heavy. Okay, so we beach land.
That's without your rifle and your water and your escape kit and all those things.
Yeah. And we landed, and then we took off the explosive, and then we would turn the boat around again and then push it into the water. And then it would take, and it was the RV point where they were lying up. Okay, then we hit an obstacle where we had to climb. It was a steep embankment, but it was sand, like thousands of years of rock that turned into sand by the wear and tear from the seaside. So we couldn't get up there with this heavy weight. So you would climb it, you would stay in one place. So luckily we had 2 rope ladders. Without that whole operation would have been a failure. Just that very simple equipment that was part of our equipment that we prepared, just in case. That was just in case. We planned that we can climb up easily there. So the first 2 guys was me and Eben, a friend of mine, Eben van der Merwe. So we would climb up and we anchored the top of the the ladder, and then we would help the guys as they climb up, grab them, pull them over, and in that exercise, even chipped one of his vertebrae in his back. At that stage, he was still warm, but it was okay. And then we started walking, probably about, it was more than 10 k's. Then could be even 15 k's that we walked at night with this heavy equipment. Even was hanging onto my rucksack, and that was the only way you could walk. And then we split up.
While he was still carrying his own.
And he was carrying his own, yes. Couldn't
I
leave him behind.
suppose, you know, nature there is soft sand, if I remember. So you would not, it's not an easy walk.
No. And then we split up the two teams, and Chris Frelen was our team leader, and then we reached that bridge, but we couldn't see. We sort of on an embankment there, and then he looked down and he said, nobody can see how deep it is down here. Is there water or anything? And he took his rucksack off and he told me, just tell the other guys I died bravely, and he jumped. And it was only a meter, luckily. But of course, you can't jump it with your rucksack. You will break your knees and ankles. So then we immediately kicked into action. We had, I can't remember how many pillars, probably 4 of that massive pillars. Easily, could be more, probably more. And we put the planks, the charges, and once everybody had the charges connected, I would then connect all the charges with the Nanel. And then there was another obstacle. Luckily, again, emergency drills kicked in here. There was no way that we could have one ring fence of mines onto one circuit. I had to break it in 2 because there was a small river running there. So I had to have the charges divided more or less equal on one circuit and the others on the other circuit. And luckily, not luckily, planned, I had 3 time mechanisms. We were supposed to use 1. So I connected them. It was, first I had all the Nunel pulled together, and then I would connect them onto Cortex, and the Cortex onto the mechanism. And the mechanism would have now a detonator and a booster connected to the Cortex.
So for those who forgot what you said in episode 5, which might be episode 1, what's the difference between Nunel and Cortex?
Yeah, Nunel is a civilian version of using explosives, and where the Cortex was military. Now, Cortex will, if it's detonated, it can only detonate it by a detonator with a booster or just a detonator, and then it will run more than 1,000 meters per second. So if there is, let's say for instance, you were made a 90 or 45 angle, it will cut off there. So that charge and whichever charges was connected with that charge is not going to go off. And especially working at night, it's impossible to keep a straight line and to make sure it's not hooked or bent or. And with the Nunel, it's like a straw, this plastic straw that you drink water, cool drink, just much thinner. And inside there is like a small charge that will ignite and it will run, and it will end up, each of that little pipes end up in a detonator. And a detonator and a booster into the charge, a 5 kilogram charge. So you can wrap it around a tree, you can take it twice around a pillar, it's not going to cut off. And then, of course, if it detonates, it stays there, the plastic pipes. So I made 2 separate circuits. I think we had 6 hours getaway time. No, 4 hours. Okay. And then I activated it and we left. And now, of course, it was like walking on air. It was without that heavy equipment. And of course, the route back was very quick.
But I do understand, sorry if I stop you, one guy almost fell off a cliff. Was
Oh,
it on the
yes,
way
yes.
there, or was it?
I totally forgot about that part. So we were climbing up. The first part we had to climb up to where we eventually had to use the ladders. Is that we went all went around on the left-hand side of this massive pillar kind of thing. And JC, I was the second last guy, and JC Erasmus was the last guy. And he sort of fell behind a little bit. And he went around to the right-hand side. But that was a dead end. And I remember we were very high up. And luckily I heard him. I heard his voice saying, help me, help me. Very muffled. So he walked, and in his mind is everybody in front of him walked here. And he kept on walking until he realized he can't go back and he can't go forward. Now his rucksack was pushing against the brick wall. And one step forward, he would have fell down and he would have been gone. There's no way we would have get him out of there. So I sneak now with my rucksack, sneak there, grab him and slowly pull him back. And he joined with us again. Yeah, so close encounter.
Okay, so now you're making your way back from the bridge, which is about to blow in a few hours. And you have to get back to that ship. You have to get back to the beach.
Yes. Then the fiasco started. The sea was just getting more heavy and stormy. And the first one or two was fine. They launched. It was a hell of an exercise to turn them around, put the guys in, and then so the first two dispatched, and then one came that's supposed to pick us up, and they see they're not going to make it, and they turned, and then it flipped. It flipped, and that whole console in front, that's where your steering mechanism is, broke off. And it capsized and it floated, and the sea took it out and dumped it there 15 meters from the wave line. So now we're stuck with three ski boats to take us all back. And Hannes Venter, who was the team leader of all the teams, said, do I have any more explosive? I said, yes, I've got more explosive. Two of the guys didn't use, with the low level bridge, the low water bridge, there was overkill. So some of them brought the explosive back. So he said, I must, luckily now I had the third mechanism. So I took 20 kilograms. Now the boat was upside down, and I put it where the engine is, and one in sort of the middle of the boat, connected it, activated the time mechanism. If I remember correctly, I think I put it 2 hours. While we were busy doing that, the first charge went off. We were supposed to be on the strike rounds by then. And it was like 5 minutes lull in fire. Then the second charges went off. And everybody was now panicking and said, well, they're attacking us. So I forgot to tell the guys, no, it's two separate circuits. Yeah, okay, so everybody relaxed. And now we were still on the beach, and it was getting first light. And I believed around there in Lobito harbor was a Kiev, Russian warship. I believe the size of the thing is that you could fit this two strike crafts onto the deck. That's how massive this ship was. So that was also lying there, not very far from us. And eventually we got everybody on the boat. I remember one of the guys, when our team climbed, me and Eben was right at the back where the transom is. And the skipper said, let go, let go. You realize, he looked at the wave and he realized he can only pick me and Eben up, but not the other two guys. And they were guys from 5, black guys, black operators. And he grabbed onto the console with that massive what do you call it?
Yeah.
Propeller, missing him by centimeters. And me and Eben is trying to loosen his grip onto the transom because we realized he's going to rip to pieces. And he decided, no, we're leaving him behind. Eventually, we got him off. And he luckily wasn't too deep. He could walk out. And there was 4 or 5 guys still stranded on the beach. So the last Barracuda came and picked them up. And this, as we were after the 3rd or 4th wave, one of the engines caught fire. So the guys eventually managed to extinguish the fire. And now we were 2.5 Barracudas. And it was daylight. We were still in the enemy zone. So the 2 strike crafts were 20, 30 k's away from us. But now they were informed what was going on. And the commander of one of the strike crafts said, well, his responsibilities was his strike craft and his men. He's going to go leave us on the beach. And Captain Woodburne said, no ways. We don't leave our men behind. So they came for us, and it was the most beautiful sight I could remember, with these 2 strike craft coming surfing towards us. So we were about a K from the beach. And yeah, it was the fastest ever that strike craft loaded these Barracudas, and we were full throttle. We left. And of course, the bridges were blown already. And I believe afterwards, the feedback we got afterwards is that picture you see there, the guy standing there is Cubans and Russians that came in and inspected. It took them a while to approach the bridge because they saw the Nonel still, the pipes running there, and I thought the thing is booby-trapped. So they had to get their demolition teams, and eventually they found out, no, it's just plastic pipes. And I believe the guards were executed because they didn't pick us up. They were supposed to protect that bridge. And then what they did, they decided, no, they have to rebuild the bridge. And they took the rest of the spans, which we didn't drop, they took that off. And it was a big ceremony, and all the highbrows was there, and they opened a new bridge. And I believe with the first flood, which was about 2 months after that, the bridge was gone. That was still built by the Portuguese, and the Portuguese know their workmanship. They know how to build a bridge. And yeah, so that bridge was, first flood, it was gone, the whole bridge.
And what if it's still gone?
I believe that there was one of our submarines there as well that could take photos up the river. I'm not sure. That part is a little bit out of my memory. It's more than 40 years back. But it was a very, very successful operations. No casualties, only Eben with his back with the vertebra broken. And everybody made it. Nobody was left behind. So yeah, it was a very, very successful operations. Of course, the Russians and Cubans were the hell with us.
Yes, I can believe we were quite upset because they wanted to reinforce their attack on Telhabel. And
Exactly.
You people will keep on disturbing the peace there, which I don't feel that bad for them.
Yeah.
They were the ones actually who sent the pictures of that bridge.
Yeah. Ironically, those time, the guy that was on there where we drank champagne, he was standing behind me. He one or other way made friends with these guys. I'm not sure how it happened because the Russian soldiers specifically had a very, very high respect for the South African soldiers. I believe we were the best ever they encountered. And for them, it didn't make sense is to fight against this small group of whites. For what reason? So they didn't support, although they have to take orders and execute it. But yeah, they were, it's like that you drink a vodka with them and talk war
they're
stories.
professional soldiers, you know, they go and do, and they had respect, and it should be like that.
Yeah.
And we did capture quite a few of them. I know you were involved with the pilots in a previous episode when it got shot down and so forth. Now, this is fascinating to me. So that bridge got blown. It set back the enemy quite a while. And you escaped. What would you have done if somebody was left behind? Where would you have gone to?
What happened is that when they follow our tracks and they found what was left of the Barracuda, now they activated a massive force. They decided, okay, these guys didn't make it. Now that was a pity that we had to leave the Barracuda behind, because we didn't want to compromise our ability to strike from the sea. And we always give the credit to UNITA. That was them doing it. But of course, now here was a boat line, and they know UNITA don't operate on the sea. So unfortunately, our ability was compromised as far as that. And they decided we are still here, somewhere along the coast. So they sent troops and helicopters going up and down the beach, thinking that we are still there somewhere. But they couldn't just make a small mathematical calculation that it's impossible. It can not be only one boat.
Yeah, that's true. And I suppose your explosives went off as well, the ones on the boat, the one which was abandoned.
Yes. Yeah, there was nothing left of the boat. But of course, there were pieces there, and they realized this is a boat.
Yeah, explosives will not destroy all the evidence. There's always something somewhere left. Have you ever had a total failure with explosives, where they didn't go off for some reason?
No, never. We had, especially then for Doppies, our training bases, that we would take all the old explosive and blow it up. If they were too, especially the TNT, just like and the RDX wax, just like a oil base, and it starts running out, and it becomes sensitive. So we would blow all that explosive, all the old ammo. And that was also a good exercise for us to learn how to use it, what will blow up, what doesn't work. So we had a benefit of where other engineering companies like School of Engineers, they don't have that luxury which we had, is that we could be in the bush and then exercise with these old explosives.
Yes, you're always busy with them. I think we'll get to that in the last episode when you went back to Fort Doppies. That's where you got your training, I believe, in
Yes.
small tactics as well as survival. You had a base there called Fort Doppies, or Fort Brass, I suppose. Doppies in Afrikaans, in English is the brass of the
cartridges.
Yeah, that's it.
Cartridges, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that, but I think the Girual Bridge went down in Special Forces history as one of the great operations, especially for the walk. Not so much for all your problems afterwards that you could practice for, but the walk, carrying that extremely heavy rucksacks,
Yeah,
explosives, completing the job, nonetheless, coming back, facing the odds, and getting away. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, and then all the lessons learned there, that is just made us that much, specifically the guys from 4 as well. There's a lot of lessons learned there.
I just need to ask quickly, once 4 has dropped you off and you people now started walking towards the bridge, what do they do?
They would go back quite deep into the sea.
Okay, they would just wait around there. They will not go back all the way to a Navy ship.
Yeah.
They would just hang around.
You wouldn't be able to see them from the beach line. So they were quite deep in. I think line of sight, but it was pitch dark, so there could be 10 k's into the sea. Nobody will see them there. And of course, there's no lights on. There's nothing, and they got like a gray color, to blend in with the sea.
Yes. Now I need to ask you, though, you told me once before, I believe when it was the motorbike raid, that you would always reach these landing zones first, and then the helicopters would arrive after you told them it's safe. Would that be
Yes.
the same before when they come and pick you up in the boats?
Yes, same, and we would use also use either beta lights, or we would use the infrared again. So yeah, they would pick us up pinpoint, but of course nobody could predict that the sea would be that rough. I mean, there's not a way like, okay, walk up another 5 or 10 k's that way. The sea was rough all over. They had to pick us up there.
Yes, and they came in. I'm not aware of any case where they refused to land or to pick you up. They might have had an accident or something went wrong or the engine started burning, but they never ever refused to dash in.
Exactly.
No, that's amazing. I would like to speak to 1 or 4 people because I know we were also working closely with the submarines. And you can't fasten one of these big ski boats on a submarine. So whenever you have like a Robert Hawk or a Zodiac, in later years it pinpointed that there should be a submarine around and perhaps not a strike craft. Not to say it is, but biologic will tell you that. Have you ever worked with the submarines?
No, I was in one. They just took us while we were longer one. We actually climbed down and just to see what it's like. But I never submerged. Is it submerged? Yeah.
Submerged, yes. Well, it's a small damn thing. It's really cramped.
Yeah.
It's not for somebody who doesn't like enclosed spaces, I don't think. No, but they were very quiet, the Daphne Class. Very, very quiet.
Very difficult to actually detect.
Yes, true. Okay, I think we're done with Girual. So we should start a new one for Quito, because Quito is actually the big one.